Throughout all humanity, the overarching question yet to be finitely and absolutely answered is why? Why do we exist? What is our purpose in this tiny sliver and minute corner of space that we occupy? From the very beginning of complex human consciousness, the idea of a higher order, a god or gods, was used to explain our being. Religions arose throughout time, teaching moral values and giving credit to their respective gods, all for creation. However, in the early to late 19th century, a new philosophy, nihilism, began. In essence, nihilism is a mode of thinking that describes existence as inherently meaningless and lacking purpose. Basically, nothing matters. Depressing, right? Consequently, the philosophy of existentialism arose from nihilism as an attempt to cope with the void of meaning, stating that the purpose for life for each individual is to create their own meaning through their freedom, choices, and responsibilities. But how was existentialism actually applied to life prior to its emergence? Are the ideas of nihilism and existentialism still prevalent today? If they are they affecting people in the same way, or have the means of escaping the void of nothingness evolved entirely? To understand these questions, I will be exploring the literary works The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde and The Flowers of Evil by Charles Baudelaire, both published during the height of existentialism, to show that while there are similarities between how people cope with existentialism, like in The Picture of Dorian Gray and The Flowers of Evil, the mode of escape has indeed evolved into the use of drugs and through personal philosophies of existentialism. The Picture of Dorian Gray follows the story of Dorian, a young and beautiful man who develops an uncanny relationship with the portrait of himself. Under the influence of his hedonistic acquaintance, Lord Henry, Dorian seeks to find fulfillment in life by pursuing all things beautiful. As he indulges in the vices of pleasure, the painting begins to take on the stains of his soul, expressing emotions like cruelty and wickedness, while he himself remains young and beautiful even after decades of aging. In the end, Dorian's morality catches up with him as he can no longer endure the weight on his soul and tries to destroy the portrait, ultimately killing himself and restoring the portrait to its original state. Wilde explores the concept of existentialism in this novel by showing how Dorian applies the philosophy to his own battles with reality. Dorian's existential crisis happens as he realizes his beauty and youth are nothing but fleeting features, exclaiming, "If only it were the other way. If only it was I who were young, and the picture that was to grow old. For that, I would give my soul." Revealing his nihilistic fear of morality is strong enough to forfeit his own soul. When his wish is granted, however, he is fully able to live out Lord Henry's advice of always be searching for new sensations, be afraid of nothing, but finds the result in that way of living equally unsatisfying in the end. Wilde's use of the double in the form of a portrait allows for this uncanny relationship with the painting to serve as a constant reminder that while living for the senses may bring initial pleasures, the soul suffers the consequences, and this form of existentialism is not sustainable. The lifestyle that Dorian is chasing, the lifestyle of all things beautiful through the senses, ultimately has the opposite effect on his soul, and Wilde delivers the message that the philosophy has its limitations in real life as their effects on consciousness are too profound to ignore. Likewise, The Flowers of Evil by Charles Baudelaire also explores nihilism and existentialism, but in a slightly different way. The book of poetry contains graphic and crude diction designed to catch the reader off guard and examine Baudelaire's philosophies in a different light than the poetry was normally presented. In the poem Paris Spleen, Anywhere Out of This World, a dialogue between Charles and his soul reveals his soul's misery for living on earth, that is, dealing with the present reality of life. The personification and dialogue with his soul in Paris Spleen, Anywhere Out of the World is significant because it clearly conveys a theme not so boldly displayed in his other works, but always there in some shape or form, the theme of despair. Contrasting The Picture of Dorian Gray, Baudelaire offers no real existential solution in this poem other than his soul finding happiness anywhere out of this world. But are these ideas of nihilism and existentialism even relevant today? A recent study from Barna Group organizations tracking the growth and decline of religious segments, the rise of atheism, suggests that indeed existentialist ideas are still, if not more relevant today than ever before. Their research shows that the atheist agnostic non-segment has seen the greatest increase of all groups analyzed, nearly doubling in size from 11% in 2003 to 21% in 2018. Another study by Sarah Bailey, the church membership in the U.S. has fallen below the majority for the first time in nearly a century, shows that in recent years, research data has shown a seismic shift in the U.S. population away from religious institutions and towards general disaffiliation, a trend that analysts say could have major implications. Another, Derek Thompson, 3 decades ago, American lost its religion. Why? He says, but the rise of non-religious affiliation in America looks like one of those rare historical moments that is neither slow nor subtle, nor cynical. You might call it exceptional. So with the growing agnostic atheist movement, people, they're these non-believers, so to say, must replace their purpose in life with something else created by themselves, which is the basis of existentialism. But what form of existentialism do people confide in today? In my opinion, the largest and most prevalent response to dealing with nihilism today is through the use of recreational drugs. Paralleling Dorian's attempts of escape through indulgence in beauty, many people confide in the use of narcotics to help them escape the pressures of reality, including the ever-impending march of time and certain promise that with life comes death. A study of behavioral health explains how since 1999, the number of drug overdose deaths involving opioids in the U.S. has quadrupled, totaling over 500,000 fatalities during that period, showing how certain drugs like opiates, known for their pain-relieving qualities, have become increasingly more popular, and like Dorian, their effects are detrimental. Drug use has especially increased during the 20th century, as the article Psychotropic Drugs reveals. The increase in drug use during that century prompted the U.S. President Richard Nixon to combine the existing agencies into a single entity, thereby centralizing funds and efforts to control drug abuse. The article Nihilism Beyond Optimism and Pessimism comments on teens all excited. They drive to the weekly oasis to dip in the cocktail of drum and bass, alcohol, drugs, dancing, and flirting as a way of filling voids. The reason these voids lead to drug use is the idea of facing nothingness is scary and oftentimes can cause depression. Not only depression, they can cause other mental illnesses as well. The article Mood Disorders and Substance Use Disorder, a Complex Comorbidity, explains how mood disorders, including depression and bipolar disorders, are the most common psychiatric comorbidities among patients with substance use disorders, revealing a correlation between mental illness and substance use. Another, by Susan Coelho, Mood Disorders and Substance Use Disorders, explains how during the past decade, research results and clinical experiments have converged in the recognition of these psychiatric illnesses commonly co-occur with substance use disorders. The rise in drug use is no surprise as existentialism continues to become an increasing trend. While the method of escape is different than that of Dorian Gray, both drug use and Dorian's existentialism have the same purpose of coping with a problem that has no answer. But what about those that do have an answer? Unlike Charles Baudelaire, some people in the 21st century have come up with their own existentialism philosophies to help them face this question that has no answer. For example, Devin Johnson, in his article Hip-Hop Adulthood, Nihilism, Hip-Hop, and Black American Youth in the 21st Century, explains how certain forms of nihilism that continue to be existential threats have actually contributed to the maturation process of hip-hop youth in the U.S., showing how some groups, despite being discriminated against, have used existentialism to find community in hip-hop. However, a more encompassing and genuine answer to a existentialism crisis comes from Siddharth Gupta in his presentation, Sunny Nihilism. Since discovering I'm worthless, my life has felt precious. He says, in the months since discovering I'm worthless, my life has felt more precious. When your existence is pointless, you shift your focus to things that have more longevity than your own ego. I've become more engaged in environmental issues, my family, and the community at large. Once you make peace with just being a lump of meat on a rock, you can stop stressing and appreciate the rock itself. Unfortunately, people like Siddharth Gupta who have created positive ways of dealing with nihilistic concepts are quite rare in today's society, and what's found more prevalently is people using things like drugs and alcohol as a way of coping with the conclusions that nihilism brings. What we can conclude from this is that yes, nihilism and existentialism are definitely still prevalent in today's society, and the effects that they're having on people are quite similar to the effects it had on people at the beginning of the 19th century in the Picture of Dorian Gray. People are still looking for a way of escape. While the means of escape may have changed, the effect is the same, destruction. So if you're having any existential, nihilistic thoughts, my advice to you is don't let it destroy you like Dorian, but find a way like Siddharth, find a solution that helps you live a better life. Thank you. That's all.